Shotgun slot left. And faking the handoff. Love rolls right, throws end zone.
He's got him.
Kraft, touchdown! And a Lambeau leap to the north end zone stands. They beat Will Harris on a beautiful play fake by Jordan Love. Tucker Kraft, 8-yard touchdown reception.
That was Wayne Larrivee, one of our favorites on WRNW. Tucker Kraft scores the final touchdown for the Packers on Tucker Kraft night at Lambeau Field. The Packers win 27-18 in a score that absolutely flatters the Washington Commanders. I'm Gregg Rosenthal in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio talking to my friend Nick Shook across the country in Cleveland. It was about as one-sided a 27-18 victory could be, with Kraft piling up 6 catches for 124 yards and a touchdown. Shook, if you didn't realize before tonight that Tucker Kraft was getting closer and closer to top 5 territory among all tight ends in the league, certainly in that mix, now you're looking skeptical, Shookie.
No, I mean, that catches me a little bit by surprise, but when you put up numbers like that, I mean, it puts you in line for a sponsorship. Mac and cheese, Kraft mac and cheese, let's go. Let's pair up with this guy. He had a hell of a night. Let's get him a deal.
Okay, last season, I would say if you look at his explosiveness, his versatility, and like the different types of routes that he can run, but he can also block. I mean, he is a big dude that moves so well. Only 24 years old, from South Dakota State, a 3rd-round pick. And 707 yards last year and 7 touchdowns. And I know he had a quiet week 1, but I think he's awesome. And yet, I don't want to start with Love, who is trying to solve the ADOT crisis in the league. That's average depth of target all by himself. Like everyone's dinking, dunking, and he's just bombing away. I don't think we can start that way. We have to start with the defense again. You trade for one of the greatest edge rushers I've ever seen in my life 2 weeks before the season, and then in back-to-back weeks, you play 2 teams that made the divisional round a year ago in these NFC playoffs. Two of the big contenders that the Packers are going to have to get through to get to where they want to be, and the games really aren't competitive. They're in a different class in these 2 games than the Lions and the Commanders, and the number one reason is the defense. What stuck out to you?
Well, I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about how Parsons, builds up this defense, strengthens it. But what I really think he does is he completes it. And he's not out there on an every play basis, but he's out there enough. And obviously he shows up in the box score. But watching this game tonight, I felt as if Parsons' addition allowed Jeff Hafley the full agency to do whatever he wanted. And there were multiple instances. Everybody talks about disguising defenses. And let me tell you, in the first half especially, he disguised like crazy. I'm sitting there. I wish every game was in prime vision, by the way, because it's a lot easier to look at what the defense is doing from that angle than the traditional broadcast angle. So I'm watching in prime vision. I'm diagnosing coverages pre and post snap. And every snap I'm going, oh, it's 6. Now it's 6. Now it's 3. 6. Now it's 2. Oh, this looks like 2 man. Oh, they just rolled to 3. Like, that's what they did the whole first half. And Jayden Daniels just took what was there, which wasn't much, because of Jeff Hafley's scheme. And the reason he can do that is because of guys like Parsons. And there was an example in the second half where there's a 2-play sequence. Parsons rushes outside on Connerly. Connerly kind of shields him away. Ball gets out. Next play, maybe 2 snaps later, Parsons fakes outside, drills inside, hits Daniels. It's a quick pressure. It's a sack. It's a one of those game-changing plays. And then there's another instance in which they chip him with Austin Eckler and Connerly, and Edge Cooper's coming from the other side. This is a complete defense. This defense is going to cause problems for any offense they face. The Washington Commanders could do nothing tonight. I don't care who was at quarterback, who was at receiver. The Packers defense is for real.
I'm so glad you pointed out that 2-play sequence. I thought about that too. And he did play more tonight, 44 snaps, essentially the same amount of snaps as the other defensive lineman in this game. I mean, they rotated him out, but that's typical. He definitely was a bigger factor tonight. And, we say like it doesn't all show up in the box score, and that's true. He drew a penalty on the play that he had a sack, another holding penalty that helped to kill a drive, and a false start on Laremy Tunsil, who was trying to jump out of his stance to try to stop Micah Parsons. And yet he does show up in the stat sheet too. 2 quick pressures, 8 quarterback pressures, over 20% pressure rate, which is sky high. And you mentioned the sack where he got inside of Connerly. We've got that sack.
Quarterback waiting for the signal. Now here's the snap. Rush on. Daniels steps up. Penalty marker down. Daniels is sacked. Back outside the 30-yard line. Micah Parsons arrives on the scene. Edgerrin Cooper was also there.
Love that play by Parsons. You know you're a beast when the other team gets called for a hold and you still finish the play. Like the Commanders had the lowest yards, 230 in the Jayden Daniels era, despite having a lot in garbage time there with that last touchdown drive. Really, the whole second half almost felt like garbage time, although this game was much closer than it should have been. And based on the results of some primetime games last week, I guess you can never say it's totally garbage time. And they also only had 2 explosive plays out of 65, and that would have been the lowest explosive play rate, I think, of any team in any game last year, which is crazy to think about. And so he just had to get rid of the ball so quickly, Jayden Daniels. And obviously Parsons was the number one reason why, but we're seeing production from a lot of the guys. You mentioned Edgerrin Cooper. Him and Quay Walker have looked good together. Lucas Van Ness had a couple nice moments tonight. Rashawn Gary had a sack. And the front seven is so good. Remember there were questions about the cornerbacks? It's all I was talking about in training camp. Like, this defense is proving, like, you don't need stars at cornerback if all the other positions are so good.
No, they're winning the trench battle. They won it on both sides of the ball tonight, and it really limited what Washington could do. Like I said, Daniels was reading coverage properly and getting the ball out. It's just there were no options. Now, there were some errant throws, of course, but that's all produced by a sped-up quarterback because he knows he can't trust that he's going to have, more than 2.5 seconds to survey and find somebody to throw to. And they played pretty sticky coverage, too. Most of those balls that he got in there were tight windows. I think their tight window number was like incredibly low. Like I think Daniels threw 11 passes into tight windows tonight. That's pretty high. Like that indicates that nobody's getting open because the defense is so good. And so, like I said, this defense is going to travel. This defense is going to be their hallmark. We can talk about how well Jordan Love and everybody else in the offense is playing, which we can get to because they're playing very well. But the final score kind of tells the story of how I think a lot of the season is going to go, which is they don't really need to put up a ton of points if the defense continues to play like this, and Jeff Hafley is allowed to do whatever he wants, which is exactly what he did tonight.
The crazy thing is you get 12 quarterback hits and 4 sacks, which is very difficult on Jayden Daniels, but it's not like he was holding on to the ball forever. He was trying to get rid of it pretty quickly, and that speaks to the 8 passes defense. That's such a huge number. The cornerbacks are so confident that the pressure is going to get there quickly that you saw Keyshawn Nixon especially, who had an incredible game. 5 passes defensed in one game. That might end up being, tops of the entire season. It'll certainly be like the top 5 cornerback passes defense game of the entire season. He was great. What a career arc for this guy who was a backup and a great return man, and then develops into a nickel, and now he's an every down player who's really playing well for them. So it's all coming together for this team. Their defense is the scariest unit maybe for any team early in the season. I know this is only the first game in week 2, but man, they're good. They have 2 road games before a week 5 bye at Cleveland and at Dallas. So a chance there for the Packers looking ahead to get to 4-0. And I feel so, good about that because it is a complete team. On a night they were missing 2 offensive linemen, Nick, that made a combined $165 million in contracts this offseason. That was their guard, Aaron Banks, and then their right tackle, Zach Tom, both out with injuries in the short week. You wouldn't have known. I mean, they were moving the ball up and down the field. Sometimes they couldn't quite finish drives. They could have had even more points, but ultimately they were making receivers open. As long as Love got a little protection, they basically were hitting shots down the field.
Yeah, we're looking at total success rates near 50%, drop back success rate over 52%. And what I really think it comes down to on both sides of the ball was coaching performance that was just very lopsided. And that's no shot at Dan Quinn. I just think that with what Hafley did defensively and the ability to do whatever he wanted, and then Matt LaFleur, who, by the way, got into a bit of a rut, I think, early in that fourth quarter when he was essentially on a put-away drive where he was throwing the ball a little too much. Mm-hmm. And I think he caught himself. And the way he centered himself was so fascinating because most coaches would just turn back to a traditional run. No, he goes wildcat and gets it to a receiver who goes around the left end for a first down. It might have been more if he hadn't slipped. And then, they continue from there. They run a jet sweep in the opposite direction. Like he's opening up the playbook. He's going into his bag and pulling some things out that we haven't seen yet. And they finished that off with a touchdown pass to Tucker Kraft, which capped his perfect night. It was just a great example of how a team is so much more prepared than I anticipated, so much more prepared than the average NFL team. And then they go out and execute because they have the personnel. And this is a team also that we were worried about their receiver position because of the injuries that they were dealing with. Turns out it's not that big of a deal when you limit an opposing offense and you're able to put up enough points to win.
Well, the receivers aren't like individually putting up huge numbers. Yeah, the first play that you mentioned with the receiver and Wildcat was Savion Williams, who moves just a little bit different. And it's a fun type of play that you can get him involved in. They might need him more because Jayden Reed left this game with what they're calling a shoulder injury. I have not seen anything yet. We taped this right after the game of a post-game update from the coaching staff. I watched the game here at NFL Network with instant injury diagnosis expert Maurice Jones-Drew, who just immediately thought it was a collarbone. I'm not saying it is, but that's what he thought, and he was in a lot of pain, and they're calling it a shoulder injury. Either way, concerning for Jayden Reed. Savion Williams is a young player who can maybe do some of the gadgety stuff that Jayden Reed can do, but certainly isn't as complete a receiver down the field. That spot will go more to their rookie Matthew Golden. They're really splitting up their reps quite evenly at receiver. Golden was quiet for the second straight game. He did not even have a catch tonight. He had 2 targets, but he got wide open down the field. And that's what I'm talking about, where this night could have even been bigger. Like, Love missed that shot, okay, to Golden, which could have been a monster play, maybe even a long touchdown. And then the throw that he made to Jayden Reed was an absolute dime that Reed made a great catch on, but Reed got tackled out of bounds. He hurts his shoulder, and there was a penalty on the Packers' right tackle, Belton, that ended up nullifying the play. So you just hate to see that all around, but it was a reminder. Love's deep passes are prettier than anyone. And again, when he was not pressured in this game, I'm bringing up the stats right here. It's just absolutely outrageous. 15 for 17 for 224 yards, 13 yards per attempt, a couple of touchdowns. And for the game, I was talking about average depth of target, Shook, like the rest of the league, and Patrick Mahomes is like going under 6-7 yards. We saw Aaron Rodgers was under 5 yards for the game. I'm trying to find it here. Where is it? Give me the ADOT. It was at 14.5 yards per throw tonight. I mean, that's outrageous, even including the garbage time. Averaging 14.5 down the field is just bananas.
Yeah, that was one of the standout things. But again, I hate to sound like a broken record. Guys were open all night.
Yes.
Like, it's a matter of just getting the ball to him. And Love did that for the most part. Like, we could point to Malik Heath making that incredible catch down the sideline to extend that drive that ends up in a touchdown. That was a huge play early in this game. Guys are going to make plays because they're getting open, because they're getting schemed open, and they're athletic enough to do it, and they have the quarterback. That's the key. You can go win games with a receiving core that isn't overly impressive when you have a quarterback that can put it on him and do it athletically, because there were times where he got pressured. The pressure rate for Washington was actually pretty decent this tonight. They had 16 pressures, near 50%, and it didn't really matter at the end of the day. I mean, you could look at their third down percentage and be like, oh, they didn't convert a lot of third downs. They were 5 for 12. They had too many penalties. It still didn't matter because, for the most part, Jordan Love made the plays that he needed to make to extend these drives and get big chunk plays, and he's not afraid to throw the football. That's the beauty of it, is he knows he has an arm, and LaFleur has given him the agency to go throw it down the field, no matter who's running these routes, because he's going to scheme them open. And that's really makes him dangerous, because we talk about the defense. If their offense has that capability on a week-by-week basis, they're going to be a tough competition for anybody.
How about Jordan Love rushing the ball? I mean, early in the game, key sweet sequence, he lowers his shoulder to run and pick up a first down, and he absolutely truck sticked Trey Amos. I think that was who he ran over, the Commanders' young cornerback, who was one of many, I think, guys in the secondary who had a great week one when you're playing the Giants and had a rough night tonight. Quan Martin gave up a big play. Marshawn Lattimore had a bunch of penalties early, so their growth on defense from week one, it's a short week, you're on the road. It definitely took a big step back today. Bobby Wagner, I also thought, was victimized. Whenever you see one of these McVay coaching tree, teams go up against this Washington team, they always are attacking that slot up the middle of the field. Tucker Kraft had a monster catch early, which really set the tone.
Receiver to the right, Savion Williams. Snap to Jordan Love. Shotgun. Looks under a blitz. Throws right side. Wide open. He's got Tucker. Kraft 40, 30, 25, 20. Brought down to the far side. Inside the 20 and the 19 of Washington. Quan Martin brings him down. Tucker Kraft wide open for 58 yards to flip the field.
Yeah, Matt LaFleur just puts so much eye candy for you, so many different things for you to deal with, and yeah, the middle of the coverage there just gets absolutely confused. At one point, Bobby Wagner almost looked like I'm too old for this. Like, get me out.
Can we talk about that?
He wasn't.
That was a.
It was pretty bad.
That was a prevailing theme. That was a prevailing theme for me, not just on that play, because that's like a variety of verts in which you think they're going to attack downfield and you're just out of position. But that was one of the themes of the night for me, which is, my God, I knew the Commanders' defense was old. They look really old tonight. Lattimore getting dusted all night. Even Bobby Wagner not being able to make much of a difference. Even when guys went up front, the second level's not making plays. They're getting cooked in the back end. They just look like a defense. At one point, Al Michaels goes, I don't know if they're just worn down and tired. Like, it is a short week, but this is like the defense you want to face on a short week because they're just an older group, and they looked the part tonight. Lattimore's numbers were horrendous. I don't want to see his PFF grade later in this week. He had like a lot of catch rate of over expected of plus 35.2% on 5 targets. Not good. Passer rating when targeted his nearest defender, nearly 120. Not good. When that's your best corner, that's what you're leaning on. It's not a good sign for how things might go for you defensively.
Well, the PFF has like the instant grades up, at least for a little bit, and yeah, he's the lowest graded guy on the team at a 30, which is not pretty. Von Miller's been total no-show in the first 2 weeks of the season. I'm not going to panic. Now, I was down on the Commanders versus consensus going into the season,
same.
But it's also 2 weeks, and I really do believe that these seasons, especially when you're playing the first Thursday night game of the year, you haven't played any real football at all, and then you have to play all these snaps in back-to-back weeks. You're just kind of trying to manage things, get some wins early, and figure out where you're good, where you're not. Right now, their offense isn't as good as it was a year ago, certainly, and the defense tonight was concerning. The number one concern, I would say, tonight for the Commanders were injuries. Noah Brown left with a groin injury. John Bates, who is one of the best tight end blockers in the entire league, left with a groin injury, I believe, as well. Dietrich Wise, who they signed from the Patriots to start for them, looked like a serious lower leg injury. I don't want to speculate, but they're calling it leg ankle, and it looked serious. And then, unfortunately, Nick, at the very end of the game, Austin Eckler, who was playing a ton in this one because he's their third down guy, and it felt like they were playing in catch-up mode, and they were in like third down mode basically the whole game, and he's playing a lot of snaps, and he goes down with an Achilles injury late in the game, carted off. Nothing, officially confirmed, but they did call it an Achilles, so you worry about Austin Eckler and his future as a veteran, and you'll probably be seeing Jeremy McNichols more in that backfield. So really a disastrous night for the Commanders, especially on the injury front. What did you see from the offense in general and Jayden Daniels? Like, how did you think they were operating?
I mean, I thought it was fine. I just felt like they were overmatched. Daniels rarely had a lot of time to throw. We talked about his time to throw earlier. I looked it up. It was relatively quick, 2.84 seconds average time to throw. That's not long. By comparison, Jordan Love, 3.14. Like, that's a pretty significant gap between the two. He just didn't have time to throw. He, like I said before, he was deciphering coverages. He was getting the ball out on time. There just weren't many options. It was a lot of checkdowns because nothing else was open. And it just kind of spoke to the frustration that I felt watching this offense the entire night. I also didn't like the way Cliff Kingsbury necessarily went about calling plays in certain scenarios. There were just like interesting formations where you saw an advantage, you saw a light box, and they end up passing, and then they come out in a formation that condenses the field, and they try to run out of it, but they don't have blockers in there. They're condensing the field in like a shotgun tight bunch formation, or like twins on each side really tight as well. It's like not spreading the field, giving yourself natural running lanes. So I think that there's some things that they need to correct there. But more than anything, they just got to do Jayden Daniels some favors. They did not go to Terry McLaurin early. That's a pretty consistent theme. And especially in a game like this, if a defense is going to get after you and also take away your best target, they're taking away Terry McLaurin and asking you to beat them with somebody else. Deebo Samuel catches a touchdown in the fourth quarter, but he's made some plays here and there. That was kind of the story for him in week 1 as well. So they just have a lot of things to fix. I think they have to kind of look in the mirror a little bit schematically and say, where are our strengths? Where can we get better right now? What do we need to work on in the long term? How can we turn this around into a productive unit? Because Daniels, a great scrambler, had no opportunity to scramble all night because of that pass rush and also because of the situations he found himself in. So I think against another team, they'll probably have more success. We're going to look back on this game and think that might have been the first or second example that we could point to as, wow, this Packers defense is for real. So I don't really, criticize the Commanders too much for their struggles tonight, but they do need to get on track.
Right, but you probably have lost Eckler here, and he's a good role player for them. You lost Dietrich Wise, who is going to be a good role player for them. You're now counting on Bill Krosky Merritt, who didn't have a lot of action tonight, just as a pure running back, and Daniels has just been like a little bit off. So the changes that they want in the offense, they'll now get to reset a little bit. McLaurin, as you mentioned, was quiet until garbage time for the second straight week. I think Deebo Samuel has looked like the old Deebo in these 2 weeks. That's a positive. Zach Ertz is still a good football player somehow. Like the guy who was drafted in the same class as Travis Kelce is still getting it done like Travis Kelce. But otherwise, man, there was not a lot to feel real positive about. And I love what you mentioned that he couldn't scramble. It's because this Packers defense is the most athletic defense in the league. I mean, Edgerrin Cooper and Rashawn Gary backing up these edges. It is just awesome. Going into the fourth quarter, the Commanders had not been in the red zone. Their offense had subsisted of Matt Gay kicking 3 different field goals of over 50 yards, at least attempting them, and missing 2 of them. That was their offense. The numbers were so one-sided into the fourth quarter when the Commanders did put together a couple of drives. So bully to the Packers, definitely going to be atop a lot of power rankings, I suspect, after week 2, and that's without seeing any other week 2 action. Commanders now at 1-1. Before we go, Shook, we tape our preview show pretty early Wednesday, and appreciate everyone checking out the dueling preview shows. We got a little loopy at the end. I hope you enjoyed it. The AFC NFC was a lot of fun. We appreciate all the responses to it. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we really appreciate you subscribing and liking and giving us a review on iTunes as well, telling your friends we're trying to grow this thing, and we're loving the momentum. Before we go, it's been so long since that show. We do have a little bit of news, and I just feel weird being in the studio and not mentioning it. Deron Bland, the Cowboys cornerback, is going to miss 2 to 3 weeks with a foot injury that happened in practice. I'm like, can we just eradicate practice injuries? I feel like this keeps happening. Let's just stop this. Why is this happening?
I know, I would love to, but you can't. You got to get your reps in as you prep. You can't be on ice all week. You come out rusty on Sunday, then everyone's going to be like, get back on the practice field. They don't go hard like they used to, but it does suck. Like, it just, as a football fan, it's unfortunate that a player like him or anybody gets hurt in practice when you're not, putting your body on the line during a game. But this is also a Cowboys team that has already been subject to enough adversity. This is going to make it a little bit more challenging for them.
I know. Watching the Cowboys week 1 and then watching Parsons out there tonight, I was like, the Cowboys could be contenders with Micah Parsons. It is really a little mind-blowing. And I don't mean contenders like winning the NFC. We got a long way to go. I'm just saying, if they had a decent defense with that offense, like they could be interesting. And you just see what a force multiplier Parsons is. Bland, who just got a big contract, is right now their best cornerback. They're trying to get Trayvon Diggs back going from injury. He should be playing week 2. A couple other injury news. Jalen Johnson is back at Bears practice. They are expecting him to return to the field, so that is good news for them in that Lions game. Dallas Goedert has been out of practice. A little bit of a surprise there for the Eagles. We'll see what his status is on Friday. Juwan Jennings is one of the many 49ers out of practice. We've already reported, that Mac Jones is going to be starting that game. George Kittle is out, but they also might be short Juwan Jennings. Man, I'm really struggling to pick this game, Shook. For game debut, I went with the 49ers, but as it's getting closer and I'm hearing more 49ers out, if the Saints are going to win, let's say 4 games this year, wouldn't one of those games be at home against Mac Jones and the 49ers? I feel like if the Saints can't win this game, they're not going to win any games.
This is an example of one of those weird spots we find ourselves in the first month of the season, which is that we have 1 week of tape to rely on. So the contextual analysis is very thin. And I just think about what happened Sunday with the Saints and the Cardinals. Like, Spencer Rattler had them in position to tie the game. In fact, he threw a touchdown pass to tie the game. It just got dropped. And their defense played well enough to keep them in that game. Really kind of frustrated the Cardinals and Kyler Murray, especially in the second half. I could see them doing the same thing against the 49ers, especially if they don't have Jennings. They already don't have Brock Purdy. They don't have George Kittle. They do have Christian McCaffrey, though. And that could be a tide turner for them. So I could see it. I could definitely see it, but I don't think that should sway your pick. The Saints are a team.
Juwan Jennings definitely should not sway my pick, but I'm an emotional person who just reacts to the last thing that I see.
You believe in the agenda. You got to have Rattler come out on top at least once.
I just believe that there's not nearly as much difference, despite, tonight, between the good teams and the bad teams in the NFL.
It's true.
And I don't necessarily think the 49ers with Mac Jones at quarterback without George Kittle is a good team. That's an average team. So there's not a big difference, I don't think, between those two teams. Xavier Worthy, by the way, was at practice for the Chiefs. Very surprising after that shoulder injury. I think there's still some skepticism he might play this week, but it indicates that they're going to give him a shot at some point.
Can we talk about this for a second?
Sure. I saw you raring to go.
Yeah. Dislocated shoulder. I see an image of him on the practice field today with a very clear shoulder brace on. I once suffered a shoulder injury and had to wear a similar brace. I didn't play receiver. I played offensive line. And even I can tell you, it restricts your movement. You can only go about this far out and like this far back. Like if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it. But it's the range of motion.
You're getting your money's
great.
worth with that shook forearm right in your face.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a limited range of motion, and for a receiver, it's going to hinder you. So I don't know how he's going to play this week. I just found it kind of shocking that he'd be at least on the practice field trying to give it a go so quickly.
Couple other items. Brock Bowers unsure if he'll play on Monday night. I don't know where that came from. I know he got hurt and was in and out of the Raiders game, but they said he could have finished it if it was a big game, and maybe they were just letting us on a little bit, which coaches are known to do. So keep an eye on that, but that would be big for the Chargers if Bowers does not suit up. And then Ed Oliver seen in a walking boot at Bills practice on Thursday. They did a walkthrough on Thursday, which is rare. I've got an eye on that Bills-Jets game. We've got our pick show with Cynthia Freeland, which will be coming up Friday afternoon. What a tease. What a transition. I think that's it, Shook. I just think that means it's time for us to go.
I agree. I'm waiting for the music to come up because I agree.
Let's go, Babona. Let's go. We got the tats on the show here. Let's go. Let's show it all. Let's show it all.
Oh yeah. Yes. I don't have any, but all right.
I'll be back in the feed Friday afternoon. Cynthia Freeland and I making picks against the spread. Our 3 favorite of the week. Shook, you're a beauty. We'll see you Sunday.